I'm Logan. I'm 42, a husband, a father, and a man who cherishes the simple joys of life. Cooking, baking, sketching, and losing myself in music. These little escapes are my refuge from the demands of everyday life. My wife, Vanessa, and I have been married for 20 years. And we have an 18-year-old daughter, Grace, who means the world to me. But lately things haven't been easy. Vanessa, well, she's never shy about sharing her opinions, especially when it comes to me. Logan, do you seriously think that car is going to last another winter? She'll say, eyeing my old Honda Civic. It screams midlife crisis, not dependable father. She never misses an opportunity to jab at my car. But hey, it runs just fine. And I've got other priorities, like saving for Grace's college fund. And it's not just the car. It's my cooking too. Logan, you're going to give us all heart attacks with all that butter. And my music. You really think playing an acoustic guitar makes you edgy? You're not 25 anymore. Even my sketches of landscapes don't escape her critique. Are you trying to be the next Bob Ross? Stick to baking cookies. But I have Grace. She's my safe harbor in the storm of Vanessa's critiques. Grace is smart, kind, and always up for a laugh. Just last week, we baked a cake together. Well, I baked. And Grace managed to get more flour on herself than in the bowl. Dad, you could open a bakery, she said, licking frosting off the spatula. Yeah, and hire you as my chief taste tester, I replied. Absolutely. But I charge in cupcakes, she quipped. That's the kind of connection we have. No judgment, just love. Vanessa, on the other hand, seems to enjoy pointing out my flaws, especially when her friends are around. I remember the time we hosted a dinner party, and she decided to roast me in front of everyone. Logan tried to fix the sink last week, she said, laughing. Long story short, we ended up calling a plumber. Anyway, DIY is not his strong suit. Her friends joined in, and I just smiled, biting my tongue. It's been like this for years. I used to think it was just her way of joking, but lately, it feels less playful and more mean-spirited. At night, I lie awake, wondering if I've somehow failed her. Was I not enough? Did she see me as less of a man because I'm not flashy or macho? Little did I know, these were just the first cracks in a marriage that was about to shatter. It wasn't just the occasional jab anymore. The criticism had become a daily sport. No matter what I did, or didn't do, it was never enough. One Friday evening, we were invited to a small dinner at her friend Sheila's house. As soon as I walked in, Vanessa was at it again. Logan thought it would be a good idea to bring a bottle of wine from the grocery store, she said, holding it up like it was vinegar. Nothing fancy, of course. The room filled with polite chuckles, and I forced a smile. Well, Vanessa always says I'm predictable, I quipped, trying to lighten the mood. But it didn't work. Predictable is one word for it, she shot back, and everyone laughed a little too hard. Later that night as we drove home, I couldn't keep it in anymore. Do you even realize how often you put me down? I asked, my voice calm but firm. She sighed dramatically. Oh, Logan, don't be so sensitive. It's all in good fun. Good fun for who? I asked, my heart aching. Because it sure doesn't feel that way on my end. She didn't answer, just stared out the window. Typical. The following week, things escalated further. I had gone to the hardware store, and a minor altercation in the parking lot turned into something more. Some guy was being a jerk about a space, and instead of getting into it, I just shrugged it off and walked away. When I told Vanessa about it later, she rolled her eyes. Of course you walked away. Why am I not surprised? You could have at least stood up for yourself. I was floored. I thought being a man meant keeping a level head and avoiding conflict, but apparently I was wrong. Sometimes, Logan, being a man means not backing down, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. It wasn't just the little things. I could feel her pulling away emotionally. She spent hours on her phone, giggling at texts she wouldn't show me. She started going out more, staying late, coming home with the unmistakable smell of perfume and wine. One night, she came home around midnight. Big night? I asked, trying to sound neutral. It was fine, she said curtly, heading straight for the bedroom. Vanessa, what's going on? You've been distant lately. Oh, don't start, Logan. Not everything is about you, she snapped. That was the end of the conversation. She slammed the bathroom door, leaving me standing there, feeling more like a roommate than a husband. I started to wonder if there was someone else. The thought made my stomach turn, but the signs were hard to ignore. And if I was right, what would I do? The idea of divorce had always seemed distant, something that happened to other people, not us. But lately, I couldn't stop thinking about it. One morning, as I flipped through emails and sipped my coffee, an ad caught my eye. Protect your rights in divorce. It felt like a sign. I clicked the link and spent the next hour reading about divorce laws, asset division, and custody arrangements. Not that Grace would need custody at 18, but still, it was overwhelming. That afternoon, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. His name was Mike, and he looked exactly how you'd expect. A sharp suit, slick back hair, and an aura of quiet confidence. "So Logan, what's going on?" Mike asked as I sat down in his office. I hesitated, then laid it all out, the criticism, the emotional distance, the late nights, and my gut feeling that something wasn't right. Mike listened carefully, jotting down notes. "Sounds like you've been unhappy for a while," he said. I nodded. "I don't know if I'm ready to pull the trigger though," I admitted. "Divorce feels final." "It is," Mike said. "But so is staying in a marriage that's destroying you. The question is, what do you want for yourself? For your future?" That hit me hard. I'd spent so long trying to make Vanessa happy, trying to keep the peace, that I hadn't stopped to think about what I wanted. Over the next few weeks, I began quietly preparing, gathering financial documents, checking our bank accounts, even making a list of assets. I didn't tell Vanessa any of this. As far as she knew, everything was business as usual. But inside I was crumbling. One minute, I'd feel relief at the thought of ending the toxic cycle. The next, I'd be consumed by guilt. What if I was making a mistake? What if I was throwing away 20 years of marriage over things that could be fixed? One night, as I tucked Grace into bed, yes, even at 18, she still liked our little bedtime chats. She looked at me with concern. "Dad, are you okay? You've been really quiet lately." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, kiddo. Just a lot on my mind." She tilted her head. "Is it Mom?" I froze. "Why do you ask?" She shrugged. "You guys don't seem happy. I mean, I don't want to pry, but it's kind of obvious." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Even my daughter could see it. That night, as I lay in bed, I made up my mind. This wasn't just about me or Vanessa. It was about Grace too. She deserved to see what a healthy relationship looked like. And staying in this mess wasn't setting the right example. The next step was clear, but I had no idea how messy things were about to get. What had started as small cracks in our marriage had now become chasms. And I wasn't prepared for what was coming. If I thought things had been bad before, I was about to learn what rock bottom truly looked like. It all began on a Saturday morning. I was at my usual coffee shop, mindlessly scrolling through emails when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my friend Ethan. His words were simple but heavy. "Ethan. Hey man. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but I think you need to see this." Attached were 2 photos. In the first, Vanessa was sitting across from a man I didn't recognize at a cafe. In the second, they were locked in a kiss. One that was far too intimate to be anything other than what it was. My stomach dropped as I stared at the screen, unable to move, unable to breathe. I typed back, trying to keep my composure. "Me, who's the guy?" "Ethan, no idea. I saw them yesterday at the bistro downtown." Didn't want to jump to conclusions, but yeah. I read the message again, my hands trembling so violently I almost dropped the phone. A part of me wanted to deny it, to convince myself that it was a misunderstanding. Maybe he was a family friend, or someone from her past. But deep down I knew the truth. When Vanessa came home later that afternoon, I forced myself to act normal. My voice was calm as I asked, "Hey, how was your day?" "Fine," she answered, barely glancing up from her phone. "Ran some errands. Met up with Jessica for lunch." I kept my tone neutral, trying to conceal the anger bubbling up inside me. "Jessica, huh? Where'd you go?" "The bistro," she said without hesitation. My heart slammed against my ribs. She didn't even try to lie. That evening, I went for a long walk to clear my head. When I returned, Vanessa was already in bed. Whether asleep or pretending to be, I couldn't tell. I sat in the living room, staring at the photos Ethan had sent me, replaying the same questions over and over. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me? To us? I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I made a decision. I called Mike, my divorce attorney. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Mike, I said, my voice steady but filled with cold resolve, she's cheating. I've got photos. I want to move forward with the divorce, but I need to include this in the case. Mike didn't sound surprised. He was used to this. Do you have more evidence? Photos are good, but we'll need more if this goes to court. The thought of digging deeper sickened me, but I knew Mike was right. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. Later that afternoon, when Vanessa was out running errands, I searched the house. Hidden in her nightstand, I found a second phone, one I'd never seen before. My pulse quickened as I unlocked it, and the passcode was laughably easy to guess. Our anniversary date. The messages were a punch to the gut. Marcus, last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Vanessa, me too. Logan's clueless as always. Same time Thursday. I stopped reading. There it was. The lies. The betrayal. The complete lack of respect. As I sat there, holding her phone, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just a failing marriage anymore. This was a betrayal of the highest order, one that I couldn't forgive. If Vanessa thought I was going to just let this slide, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I couldn't keep it inside any longer. Vanessa had to know that her secret was out, and I wasn't going to sit idly by while she tore apart everything I had worked so hard to build. That evening, Grace was out with friends. Vanessa walked in, heels clicking on the hardwood floor, shopping bags in hand, acting as if nothing was wrong. The sight of her so calm and collected sent a rush of anger through me. Hey, she said casually, not even looking up from her phone. Dinner ready yet? Nope, I replied, leaning back on the couch, her second phone in hand. But I did find something else to digest. Her eyes flicked to the phone, and for the first time in a long while, she looked nervous. What's that? She asked, her voice tight. I held it up, my voice unwavering. Oh, you don't recognize it? That's strange. It's full of texts between you and a guy named Marcus. You know, the one you've been sneaking around with while I've been clueless as always. Her face drained of color, but she quickly tried to recover. Logan, that's not. Don't, I snapped, cutting her off. Don't insult me by lying again. I've got photos, texts, everything I need to prove what you've been doing. She opened her mouth, but then seemed to think better of it. Crossing her arms, her face hardened into defiance. So what? Maybe if you were a little more manly, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. Her words stung, but I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I stood up, the anger dissipating into something else entirely. Manly? I repeated, my voice steady. Being a man isn't about picking fights or showing off. It's about being reliable, steady, and putting your family first. But you wouldn't know anything about that, would you? She rolled her eyes, dismissing me. Oh, spare me the lecture, Logan. You're boring. Marcus makes me feel alive, like I'm actually with someone who has a backbone. I couldn't help but laugh, but there was no humor in it. Alive? Let's see how alive he makes you feel when he realizes I'm done footing the bill for this circus. Because here's what's going to happen. I pulled a folder from the coffee table and tossed it onto the couch. Those are divorce papers. You'll likely get half, as is the law in our state, but not a cent more. And before you even think about dragging this out, I've got enough dirt on you to make sure no judge in their right mind sides with you. Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm dead serious, I said, my voice firm. You wanted excitement. Congratulations. You got it. But don't come crying to me when your little fling doesn't pan out. Vanessa tried to play the victim. Logan, wait. I didn't mean, maybe we can fix this. We've been through so much. No, I said firmly, cutting her off. You don't get to play the poor me card now. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. She stood there, stunned, as I picked up my car keys and headed for the door. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Dad, can we talk when I get home? I didn't know what she wanted to say, but I had a feeling the fallout from this was far from over. I didn't want to face it, but I knew I had to. That night, when I returned home, Grace was waiting for me in the living room. Her expression was a mixture of concern and confusion. I braced myself for what was coming. "Dad," she started softly, "what's going on with you and Mom?" I sighed, sitting down across from her. "Grace, I don't want to sugarcoat this. Your mom and I are getting a divorce." Her eyes widened, but she didn't look entirely surprised. "Why?" I hesitated, debating how much to share. Grace was 18, old enough to handle the truth, but she was still my daughter. "Let's just say there are things I can't overlook anymore. Your mom hasn't been honest with me, and it's not something we can fix." Grace sat back, processing my words. "Is it because of Marcus?" she asked quietly. My heart skipped a beat. "What do you know about Marcus?" She swallowed hard, looking down. "I heard Mom talking to Aunt Sheila about him last month. She said he makes her feel special." Grace's voice cracked on the last word, and I could see the hurt in her eyes. I didn't want to believe it, Dad. I leaned forward, taking her hand in mine. "Grace, listen to me. None of this is your fault, okay? Your mom made her choices, and now we're dealing with the consequences. But no matter what happens between us, I'm always here for you." She nodded, tears welling up. I can't believe she'd do this to us." The day of the court hearing arrived. I walked into the courtroom with my head held high, ready for whatever came next. I wasn't here to play games. I just wanted what was fair. Vanessa, however, had other plans. She sat across from me with her high-powered attorney, exuding confidence. Her lawyer wasted no time, starting his case with a smooth, rehearsed voice. "Your Honor," he began, "Miss Vanessa has sacrificed so much for this marriage. She deserves the house, spousal support, and a larger." I leaned toward Mike, my attorney, who gave a subtle nod, signaling that it was now my turn to speak. Standing up, I faced the judge, my voice steady as I addressed the court. "Your Honor," Mike began, his tone calm but firm, "let's talk about the so-called sacrifice Vanessa claims to have made. Yes, she spent time and money on her appearance, but that wasn't for her husband or her family. That was for herself, to present an image that excluded the very person who worked tirelessly to support her lifestyle. Meanwhile, my client Logan has endured constant criticism and emotional neglect throughout their marriage." Vanessa's glare cut through me like a knife, but she remained silent as Mike continued. "Logan has done nothing but work hard to provide for their family, taking on every financial responsibility, only to be met with disdain and disrespect. And now, Vanessa is demanding the house, spousal support, and a larger share of their savings. Your Honor, that is not fairness, that is exploitation." Vanessa's attorney quickly interjected, trying to defend his client. "Logan is mischaracterizing the relationship. Vanessa's expenditures were part of her role as a wife, fulfilling her duties to maintain her appearance for her husband." Mike was unfazed. "Your Honor, those appropriate expenditures included designer clothes, spa treatments, and luxury cosmetics, all while Logan drove a used car and worked day and night to provide for their family. Vanessa wasn't using those resources to support a household. She was using them to maintain a fantasy that didn't include her husband." The judge looked up from her papers, her gaze sharp and unreadable. "Miss Vanessa, do you have anything to say in response?" Vanessa stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Yes, Your Honor, I do," she said, her voice strained. "I had to do all those things because Logan wasn't enough for me. He's boring, predictable, and weak. I wanted to feel alive, to feel valued. Is that so wrong?" Her words hung in the air like poison, but before anyone could respond, Grace, who had been sitting quietly at the back of the courtroom, stood up. "Your Honor," she said, her voice unwavering, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't stay quiet anymore. My dad isn't weak. He's the most caring, dependable person I know. And while my mom was spending money on herself, all she gave him in return was disrespect. He deserves better than this." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. I felt a deep, overwhelming sense of pride for Grace in that moment. In the end, the judge ruled that the house would be sold, with the proceeds split evenly between us. Vanessa was awarded half of our savings, but the judge denied her request for spousal support, ruling that her demands were unreasonable and unsupported. As we walked out of the courtroom, Vanessa shot me a venomous look. "You'll regret this, Logan," she spat, her voice dripping with fury. I met her gaze calmly. The only thing I regret is letting you treat me like a doormat for so long. The legal battle was over, but the emotional fallout was far from finished. Vanessa had lost more than just the court case. She had lost the respect of her family, and she had lost me. I wanted to move on, but I knew there were still pieces of my life that needed to be rebuilt. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Years of emotional abuse, betrayal, and neglect were finally behind me, but the silence that followed felt deafening. The house, once filled with memories, was now half empty and stripped of its warmth. It felt more like a tombstone for what I'd lost than a symbol of what I'd gained. Grace, as always, was my anchor. She stayed with me for a while, helping me pack up old memories, and reminding me that not everything had been bad. "Dad," she said one evening as we sorted through boxes, "I know this is hard, but honestly, I think this is the best thing for you." I nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. "It's hard to see it now, kiddo, but I think you're right." I started to adjust to my new life. I sold the house as per the court order and moved into a modest, smaller place. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I began taking cooking more seriously. Turns out, I was pretty good at it. Grace even convinced me to start an Instagram account for my recipes. Chef Logan wasn't exactly going viral, but it gave me something to focus on other than the past. Vanessa, on the other hand, wasn't adjusting as well. Word spread that her relationship with Marcus had crumbled almost as quickly as it had begun. It turned out that her idea of excitement and strength didn't translate well into real life. Marcus was controlling, argumentative, and had little patience for her demands. From what I heard, their fights were legendary. There were even rumors that Marcus had been physically abusive toward her, though I couldn't confirm it. One evening, Grace came over with some surprising news. "Dad," she said, setting down her bag, "I support you, and I didn't want to hang out with Mom. But I'm going to college soon anyway, so I figured I should keep in touch with her a little bit. She called me today. She wanted to know if I thought you'd ever take her back." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" "Yeah," Grace said, rolling her eyes. "Apparently Marcus dumped her. She said she's miserable. She misses the stability you gave her." I laughed bitterly. The stability she spent years tearing down. Grace shrugged. "People don't always appreciate what they have until it's gone." I continued to rebuild my life, but then something unexpected happened. Vanessa reached out a few times, but I kept my distance. One evening, she showed up at my new house unannounced. She looked different, not in a good way. Her once confident, polished exterior had crumbled, revealing someone tired, defeated, and broken. "Logan," she started, her voice weak. "Can we talk? Can we?" I stood in the doorway, blocking her from coming inside. "What is there to talk about, Vanessa?" She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I made a mistake. I thought I wanted excitement, but all I did was destroy the one good thing I had. I miss us." "Us," I repeated, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Vanessa, there hasn't been an us for a long time. You made sure of that." Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. "I know I can't undo what I did," she said, her voice trembling. "But maybe we could start over." I shook my head. Starting over would mean erasing years of disrespect and betrayal. "I've moved on. You should too." She stared at me for a long moment before nodding. "I guess I deserve that." "You do," I replied quietly. "Goodbye, Vanessa." I closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a long, exhausted breath. It felt like closing a chapter, not just of that night, but of my life. Months passed, and life began to feel normal again. Grace went off to college, and we talked almost every day. My cooking hobby grew into something bigger, and I even started teaching a local class once a week. Looking back, I realized that Vanessa's betrayal, painful as it was, had given me something I never thought I'd have: freedom. The freedom to live on my own terms, to rediscover who I was, and to build a future that wasn't weighed down by constant criticism and doubt. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: respect is the foundation of any relationship. Without it, everything else crumbles. And as hard as it was to walk away, I now know I made the right choice. For the first time in years, I'm at peace. And let me tell you, it feels damn good. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you all the best, and may your journey ahead be filled with peace and strength.